Sean.
Mike?
What is this? A crossover episode? Yowza, yowza, bo bowza. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. Welcome to the final episode of season 3 of BoJack Horseman. That went well.
And
this is what is this a crossover episode?
Maybe the final episode of our podcast.
No, that's incorrect.
They'll have to listen to the end to find out.
No, they can pretty much. I mean, there's 3 more seasons of this show left, and we're gonna finish it.
There's no guarantee of that. So we might announce at the end of the podcast that we're done. So just in case, you should listen to the full episode.
I can tell you guys that we will not announce that at the end of the episode. Does that mean we finish all 3 seasons? No. But we will not announce that at the end of the episode. We just will go dark and you'll never hear from us again.
Okay.
But this episode is called That Went Well. It is the final episode of season 3. BoJack hits rock bottom. Mr. Peanut Butter and Todd save the day. Princess Carolyn finds a new calling. Has a 9.0 out of 10 on IMDb.
Okay.
And we have our friend Edvis here to help us review. Edvis 1997. 7 out of 10. 7 in the subject line.
Wait. 7 out of 10?
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. That's way too low.
I'm just reading what Edvis says.
I'm really upset.
The ending was really empty with a lot of holes, which kind of disappointed me.
What? Hey, what? It's called a cliffhanger. I'm really upset.
You're really mad at Edvis
because I think this is a fucking great finale. Anyways, yeah.
Sean loves this episode, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. This episode came out on July 22nd, 2016,
so
Sean.
I actually, in the in the spirit of what we did, I actually kind of wanted to maybe switch it up a little bit.
Oh, you have something?
Yeah, well, we have a good friend that is really a driving force of the podcast.
Okay.
And I thought it might be fun for the season 3 finale if we did their birthday. Well, their birthday the year that this released, because I don't know what year they were born.
Oh, okay.
But I think...
What day is that?
The birthday of our good friend, Fabio the Iguana, November 5th. So I think we should do November 5th, 2016.
So do you have this pulled up and you're doing it, or am I looking this up?
Is this the site you use? Because I have it up, but that's second breakfast.
Oh my God.
I don't look. You're the master of all this. Okay?
I got it. All right. I will say Fabio's birthday in 2016, slow news day.
Okay.
Breeders' Cup horse racing, Santa Anita Racetrack. Day 2 winners are Champagne Room, Queen's Trust, Dre Fong, obviously, Classic Empire, Highland Reel, Finest City, Tourist, and Arrogate. Those are all the winners from the Breeders' Cup.
Are those horse names?
Those are horse names, yes.
Obviously.
Tourist is a horse name. Yep. Tourist.
I think those people should be killed.
The horses?
No, the people that named them.
Anymore.
Probably. Like, that's fucked up.
You like Arrogate?
No, but it's better than, obviously, and Tourist.
I like Champagne Room.
That's also terrible.
Well, I like it because, the thing with the Champagne Room is the famous no sex in the Champagne Room. I feel like they named their horse to stop, their weird, uncle from having sex with their horse.
Oh.
Anyway.
I think Dre Fong is the only one that's, an actual name.
Yeah, but horses are always named weird.
Are they? I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know a whole lot about horses.
That's the only news bit on this day.
Yeah, but there is something.
The music charts.
Yeah.
We have number 1 in the U.S., Closer by the Chainsmokers featuring Halsey. Huge hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the UK, oddly enough that they've shown up twice now, Shout Out to My Ex by Little Mix, a group I had never heard of until we started doing this podcast. And they've had 2 different songs in the UK be number 1.
And much like a lot of things that happen on this podcast, I threw out a new idea because I thought it would be fun for a friend, and it landed like a wet fart. So
yeah, that's okay.
This sucked. I blame Fabio.
At least I didn't have to say anything about someone killing a bunch of people then killing themselves.
That's true, but I don't know. It's kind of a staple of the podcast at this point.
We're just gonna move on and hope that next season's a better date.
Yeah.
So like I said, this episode got a 9.0. That went well. What did you think of this episode, Sean?
I fucking loved this episode. This episode got me really emotional in a lot of scenes because it wasn't manipulative. There's a lot of scenes in this episode where they're having conversations that normally you would expect to hear like the sad BoJack music behind, and there's just no music.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think I've talked about with Fabio, and I've talked about with some people, is that like one of the things that you don't super immediately think about when you think about like music and movies and stuff and composers, like, but a choice to not put music in a scene can elevate. Yeah. You know? And so having these scenes where there are characters having like really deep conversations and there's just no music playing in the background, it something struck me about that. It felt very real to me. It elevated it. So I really loved that choice. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, there's, I think that, like I said before, I love the ending. It's very much like, this is the first time we finished a season of BoJack and I went, I need to watch the next episode right now. I need to know what happens.
Really? Okay.
Because the last 2 seasons have been like, they're kind of, we've talked about how like they each end and it's kind of like there's room for more, but it could be an ending, you know?
The way they structure these is like in a lot of shows, the 11th episode would have been the finale, right?
Yeah.
And then they kind of like to do like almost a wrap up after that where they don't leave you hanging.
Yeah.
But this one did a good job of doing both. Where they leave you hanging a little bit on some stuff, but they also, the big event that happens in episode 11 is kind of taken care of, so to speak.
Yeah. And I mean, like, everybody's status quo changes in this episode.
Yeah.
Nobody in this episode is where they were the episode before.
Yep.
And I think that's super interesting. And the status quo changes all happen in like the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
So you don't even really get to establish like there's something we're going to talk about at the end of this episode. My jaw dropped. It was the most surprised I've been the whole time we watched the show.
Really? Okay, I can't wait to get to it. Let's dive into it.
Yeah.
The episode opens up with you kind of sniped this, like BoJack is going to ask Sarah Lynn to be on the BoJack Horseman show because he had that flashback during his drug-induced haze, and we get that flashback here where he shows up at her dressing room after a concert, and the assistant doesn't want to let him in, but he goes, "Just say it's BoJack," and she goes, "BoJack, oh my God," and she's so excited to see him. And you can tell by the way they draw her and by the way she acts that this is probably one of the last times she was like a normal person.
Yes.
Even the way that the actress whose name escapes me right now, even the way she speaks, it's way more measured and less like out there and, you know, suck a dick dumb shits. Like it's, you know, but you can tell she's losing it. And she even says that, right? She says, wow, you know, you're like the only person I have left that doesn't want anything from me. And, you know, this life, while it's like really great, it's also like really wearing on me. And I'm just like a second from going crazy.
Yeah.
And, he reveals that he does in fact want something from her. He doesn't read the room, and it's to come on his failing show.
You know what I think is worse about it is that he does read the room. He knows. You can see he's ashamed as he's doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
But he still does it. And that's where I think it's even worse that he did it. Like, he knows what he's about to do is wrong and that it's going to hurt her, and he does it anyways.
And, to her credit, she kind of just goes, oh, and says, go place the script over there.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's so great to see you instead of friend, because she talks about how before he's like her only friend. And, but yeah, it's just kind of a heartbreaking thing because we know that BoJack had a big part in her dying here.
Yeah.
But he also had a big part in her spiraling downward, right?
I mean,
and we knew that kind of.
Yeah.
But this is like, hey, you don't know what would have happened if he hadn't done this. And he even talks about this later in the episode that she wasn't supposed to die, but people were acting like she was supposed to because of how she had been.
Yeah.
We cut to present day where
we do get confirmation that she's dead.
Today we lost an icon. # she will be loved. # watch The Voice season 10. Adam Levine. Just a nice shot at Adam Levine there.
Yeah.
And she's dead at age 31. And that cuts us right to the intro, which I don't. Did you notice something about the intro, Sean?
I didn't.
Sarah Lynn is no longer featured in the intro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's fun, right? That's a fun little thing that they included in there. Huh?
Yeah.
So after that, we get a little bit of levity, thankfully, from character actress Margot Martindale.
Yeah. I didn't see this coming.
You what?
I did not see this coming.
Yeah, you finally are getting your spaghetti strainer catharsis.
And it's so much better than I could have imagined.
Yeah. She is speeding in the ocean on the escape from LA with the Todd paper mache head, who has become kind of her skipper.
I love how invested I am in this show at this point, that when I saw her, I was like, oh shit, oh, fuck. I mean, you told me that she was going to be in here, but awesome. And then when it zooms out and you see she's on the escape from LA, I'm like, yo, she's on the escape from LA still. Right. Like, oh fuck.
You're excited to see a boat.
Yeah, right?
I love that Todd's voice has this echo.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think you got a touch of the ocean madness, Margot.
Yeah,
It's just so funny. Her banter with the Todd paper mache head.
Yeah.
And she is speeding. And then we cut to the UR Secretariat blimp where we have a ship captain and his pig friend who...
I want to see so much more of these guys.
The pig remarks, she's top 20 on the FBI's most wanted list and AV's Club's list of 20 actresses that always make everything better. We should report it. And he goes, are we here to catch... are we casting directors or are we blimp pilots? And he's like, blimp pilots, sir. And they're on this, of course, the Secretariat blimp is just a giant mirror because that's the ad campaign that BoJack wanted. And they are speeding towards a ship liner, the Cartondale Cargo, and there are two people, British people, driving this, and it's full of pasta for Sandro's new restaurant.
Everything started to come together, and I was like, oh my God.
And he needs real Italian spaghetti, which is how Italian people say spaghetti.
Yeah. And they're like, we're not gonna make it. And he's like, you better make it. I need this pasta here. And the lady goes, better do what he says. He might have friends in the mob.
Yeah, and he's like, that's a terrible stereotype. So they turn their ship to faster, and Margot Martindale sees this, but she wants to play chicken, and the Todd head is not down, but
sorry, there's there's a line I really want to when she's rushing the fucking boat and it cuts to the people in the blimp.
Yeah.
And they're like, should we do something? The pig, and the guy goes, you know damn well when we took to the sky, we made a solemn oath never to meddle in the affairs of land nor sea. We are sworn but to observe. This is the blimper's promise.
So the boats collide, and Todd's paper mache head gets split apart, and there's spaghetti everywhere. And then the sun comes out from the clouds and reflects off the Secretariat blimp to start cooking the pasta.
And I love.
And Margot Martindale goes, if only we had some olive oil to reduce the stickiness. And one of the other people goes, but olive oil doesn't actually reduce the stickiness in pasta. It's only a myth. No, I wasted so much of my life putting olive oil in pasta. Which is just a really funny thing to me. And we get Tom Grumbo Jumbo reporting. He says, hold on, I just missed the line, and it really made me laugh the first time
Disaster al dente.
Disaster al dente off the coast of San Clemente.
Yeah.
And he reports on how this pasta is actually going to take over Pacific Ocean City, where we went in an earlier episode. So a lot of this is like, that's what's really nice about this episode, is they're tying a lot of things, references and things that happen throughout the whole season together here, right?
And I'm going to spoil something for the end of our episode, okay?
Okay.
My favorite bit in the episode is every time it shows Pacific Ocean City and it plays the music.
Yeah.
Every time, it's like this fucking choir. It's like One Winged Angel. Like, this choir. Like, every time it happened, I laughed. And it did not get less funny at all. It actually got more funny for me the more they did it.
Tom connects via Google Hangout with Carla Hall, who's a spaghetti scientist, and she talks about what's going to happen to the city. And how it's going to cook all the people. And if only there was somebody who had a large amount of spaghetti strainers lying around their house, who also had access to a bunch of drivers to get the spaghetti strainers here, who also had the drivers be really strong swimmers, for example, like sexy killer whales. And Tom Grumbo Jumbo goes, well, is there anybody out there like that? And she goes, I don't know, Tom, but like to quote my favorite game show, let's find out. And of course, obviously, we're talking about Mr. Peanut Butter, who is standing in front of a lens flare. Did you like this J.J. Abrams joke? I did. I knew you'd really appreciate Lens Flare, the new film by J.J. Abrams. Also, the other movies are Secretariat, Dead Poodle, Star Boars, and The Haberdasher's Peanut, which is what Leonardo DiCapricorn was the star of. Okay. So Mr. Peanut Butter's at the theater, and he is going to see Secretariat finally, because he never ended up seeing it. And he turns his phone off. He goes, if anybody needs me the next 2 hours, they'll just have to wait. Todd sleeping on Bojack's couch. Or no, this is the couch in the office. It just looks kind of like Bojack's house. At Cabracadabra, and all the whales are watching this news, and Tom Jumbo Grumbo has another this tragedy truly puts the no into noodle, the rut-row and rotelli, and the oh man and manicotti. And then he goes, just pick your best one, Randy. Which I love him yelling at Randy.
Yeah.
But
and then
yeah, and the guy eeks. Yeah. the squid man. Yeah. And he's trying to get a hold of Mr. Peanut Butter. Mr. Peanut Butter has one of those shitty voicemails where they go, hello?
Yeah. Which I think we've seen that before.
Yes. But Todd falls for it.
He does. Also, I need to jump back. When they do the fucking pasta falling, I think it's the same shot of the pasta every time.
Yeah.
And that also made me laugh.
Yeah. It certainly is the same shot of the pasta every time.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like when you first see it, you go, man, no one's going to be able to stop this. That's way too close.
Yeah.
But because it's the same shot every time, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So Todd and the killer whales are off to Mr. Peanut Butter's house. Mr. Peanut Butter comes out of the movie and he goes, was that Oscar worthy? Who's to say? And he goes, 98 messages. I better listen to them all in order. And the first one's Todd. And he goes, yeah, I'll he says that we need your strainers, it's life or death. And then he listens to another one from Todd and he goes, hey, I got to listen to these other messages first. But then it's someone trying to sell him season tickets to the theater. And he goes, I don't have time for this. So he throws it down. And we get, on the beach, Mr. Peanut Butter covered in spaghetti strainers like a Mad Max character.
Good. It's so good.
And he says, spaghetti or not, here I come. And they save the day. Presumably, we don't see that yet. But we cut to a episode of Horsing Around where Sarah Lynn cooks way too much spaghetti.
Yeah.
And I've heard of pasta point of no return, but this is ridiculous. And BoJack is watching it sadly, as the moral of the episode is, you got to tell me when you mess up. We're family. I'll always be there for you. And obviously that's hitting BoJack pretty hard, considering she just died. And Diane shows up, and she brings up, why does Horsing Around have 2 sets of stairs? There's one in the living room, one in the kitchen. Have you ever been to a house like that? And this is a reference to the show Step by Step. Did you ever watch Step by Step?
I did not.
It's an older sitcom that was on TGIF back in the day, around the same time as Full House.
Okay.
And I think Full House had 2 staircases too, where this was a thing these shows would do.
There was one in the kitchen and there was one in the living room. Yeah, in Full House.
Step by Step had the same thing, and it was like, who has houses like this?
Yeah. I love Full House.
So, they're talking about how, first of all, Diane's there because she's worried about him. And BoJack, I said this earlier, but he's sitting during the funeral. There's so many people there, and he kept thinking, I did this to her, but everybody was saying stuff like, well, this was bound to happen, but it wasn't bound to happen. And Diane tries consoling him, and he goes, I don't know how to be Diane. It doesn't get better. It doesn't get easier. I can't keep lying to myself and saying, I'm going to change. I'm poison. I come from poison. I have poison inside me, and I destroy everything I touch. That's my legacy. I have nothing to show. Well, it went too fast. It went too fast.
And during this whole speech,
I have nothing to show for the life that I lived. I have nobody in my life who's better off for having known me. But you're right. There's no music, and typically this would be like a boom, boom, BoJack chord moment.
But I think it hits so much harder because there is no music.
Right. And Diane actually shares a very convenient fact about BoJack, about her relationship with BoJack that she's never shared before. After he says that no one's been better because I've been in their life, and she talks about how she used to watch Horsing Around, and her family life wasn't the greatest, and so a half hour every week she had a home, and it helped her survive. And she's like, there's millions of people that feel that way from watching your show. And he's like, why didn't you ever tell me? And she's like, to preserve some fiction of journalistic integrity. And I don't say this like going, hey, she reveals later that this was a lie or whatever, but it just, to me, it feels so convenient.
Yeah.
Like, oh, now suddenly when he needs help, you were influenced by him as a child when you never brought it up before. I don't know. I just don't buy that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can see that. There's actually something about it that feels kind of in character to me.
Okay. Which
I don't know that I can touch on it. Like, I don't know if I can express it in words, but when I was watching it, it felt like it fit. There's just something about like her like attempts at objectivity that I kind of buy that she would push that aside.
I just think when you fit it in with like what happens in this episode with Ethan around, it's like they're obviously to like make BoJack feel okay to do something like that.
Yeah.
I personally didn't buy it from Diane.
No, I can totally get that.
Right.
I don't know. And like I said, I don't know that I can really put it into words, but for some reason it just kind of, it fit for me.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's just a nitpick by me. I don't think it's a huge issue. But watching it this time, I was like, I don't know that I buy this.
Mm-hmm.
So BoJack, this causes BoJack to call Ethan, Brad, saying, hey, I want to do Ethan around. And he says, more than ever, people need shows like Horsing Around. I need a show like Horsing Around. But this isn't like the last time where you say you want to do it, but then I find out you don't actually want to do it, and then your mean publicist yells at me, and then at the airport on the way home, I get a pretzel, but I drop the pretzel on the ground and gets eaten by an ant. He's like, what? No, you won't regret this, Bojack, and hangs up the phone and immediately kicks all his customers from his hardware store out.
And
leave
says,
and never
"Don't-"
come back.
Yep.
It's closed forever. I'm going Hollywood. We then cut to Mr. Peanut Butter, Diane, Princess Carolyn, and Ralph on a double date. And Mr. Peanut Butter is now a star because he saved the city, right? He saved the underwater city. And he makes a funny joke. It's funny, you help out at one disaster and suddenly everybody loves you, unless you're Sean Penn.
Yeah.
But they talk about how it's great PR for Cabracadabra, and they talk about how Diane doesn't like Cabracadabra because it's objectifies women, and he's like, well, it doesn't matter anymore because I'm selling it. And this kind of makes her happy because it's like she doesn't have to worry about her husband running a company that's like sexist. Yeah. He also argues that it's not sexist because then something good ended up happening because of it.
Of course.
And she's like, yeah, I guess I can't argue with that. And then he does say this to Princess Carolyn, it's too bad you shut down your agency because you would be rolling in money right now if you didn't. Because he was one of her clients, and they're talking. Miss Princess Carolyn actually seems happy with her non-working life. Obviously, Ralph is well off, and we find out in a minute that he's a Stilton, which is the Bojack universe of the Hiltons.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about Ralph.
Wait a minute. You thought Ralph was the Rizzler, and now you don't like him?
I did, but the way he acted in this episode was concerning to me.
Really?
It just felt very possessive.
Huh. See, I guess I see it when I was watching this as Princess Carolyn being the weird one, not Ralph. But I guess I get what you're seeing.
Like she's like helping her friends, and he's like, stop it. Like, and it's because he sees her slipping into like her habits. But there's a line when they go back to her place where he's like, because I don't want to share you with anybody. And just the way that he says it, I'm like, hang on a second. And they move right past it. But there's something about this that made me very uncomfortable.
I definitely think you're reading that part of it wrong.
Okay.
He definitely doesn't want her to go back to work, but I think it's because he saw how miserable she was while she worked. He actually praises her for setting up Diane with his sister and her website.
Yeah, but that's also a terrible idea.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's going to go terribly.
You're sure about that?
I'm fucking so positive that's going to go horribly.
Okay. We'll get to that. But the point of it is Diane's unemployed, and Princess Carolyn sets up a meeting between her and Ralph's sister, who's starting a website, blog, newsletter, whatever. A lot of buzzwords used in there.
Yeah.
And it's Ralph calls it Girl Crush, but later Stephanie, her name is, calls it Girl Crush.
Yeah.
So I think it's Girl Crush.
Yeah.
But Princess Carolyn sets her a meeting, and Mr. Peanut Butter is getting phone calls off the hook.
Another offer? That's incredible. They want to pay me how much? That's a lot of zeros.
Even 10% of this would be a huge windfall.
Yeah.
So we cut back to Princess Carolyn's apartment, like we said, and he says, hey, I like your friends and I like you. This is working. And that's when he praises her about Girl Crush. But he's like, that's why you were such a good manager. And she's like, well, wait, I wasn't a manager. I was an agent. He's like, oh, right. Sorry. Well, whatever it was, I'm glad it's over because I don't want to share you with anybody like you said. But she's like, wait a minute. That was the problem. All this time I thought I was an agent, but I'm really a manager. And he's like,
And
what's the difference? And I'm kind of with Ralph on this. What is the difference?
If the way I understand it is, I believe like an agent works for a company and a manager works for you.
Okay.
I might be totally wrong.
Well, I also feel like a manager. Now I'm thinking about it. A manager probably doesn't have a ton of clients, where an agent would have a ton of clients.
Yeah, I just looked it up to kind of try and get a more, official thing. But like, agents are salespeoples. Like, they go out, they negotiate the deals. Managers are more like, they advise you and they support you and like, it's a much more kind of moral support position, it seems to me, than anything like technical, where an agent is like, they're not here to support you, like in terms of like, they're gonna be nice to you sometimes, but they're not there to like make you feel good. They're there to like make, to make commission off you, making them money. Which I guess managers are too.
A manager's a little more personal relationship.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I get. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, she gets in her head she wants to be a manager, and Ralph does do a little like, "Hey, I support you if this will make you happy, but isn't this the same thing?" And she's just like, "No, you idiot, it's not." She didn't say that, but basically
I actually think this is a really good idea for her.
Do you?
I think she'd be much better as in that kind of in that role.
All right, I guess we'll find out. We cut to the set of Ethan around. Everything's dark because they're not shooting, but Bojack and Brad are checking out the set, and he says, I have a question about the script, and he goes, "Too many yowza bobowzas for you?"
Or not enough.
Or not enough. And he goes, they talk about this "that went well" line, where Bojack is delivering the line, but he's like, "Hey, don't you think you should deliver that line? This is your show." And it's kind of Bojack showing an unselfish side of himself. Like,
it's probably like his best moment in the series.
he wants this show to be a success, but I think in the past, Bojack would sabotage a show if the success meant it wasn't his success.
Yes.
And here he's putting Ethan first, even though maybe Ethan's not as good of an actor, or as big as of a star or whatever. But he's like, "Hey, you should have the guarantee laugh," and they kind of workshop it together, and he goes, "That went well," and they both raise their eyebrows at each other, and it plays a little goofy cartoon noise when they do it.
So I think this scene and the previous one being back to back was really interesting to me, because I almost felt that, and I might have been reading into this incorrectly, but I almost felt that the choices being made by Bojack and by Miss Caroline are like
Princess Caroline.
Princess Caroline, yeah, are like, they're stepping away almost from stardom and taking a role that is more like supportive of somebody else.
Yeah.
When Princess Caroline was being an agent, it wasn't like to help everybody else's careers. She wanted to be the best agent. She wanted to be famous for being an agent. Whereas it feels like this kind of management push for her, it feels like it's coming from a place more of wanting to cultivate other people and less like be the famous one themselves. And Bojack, while I was watching this, I was like, Bojack would be a pretty good like acting teacher or coach.
Yeah.
Like I think it's really interesting that these scenes are back to back, in that we see like, if they set aside their ego, both of these characters could kind of find some really successful work in the industry, I think.
Yeah. And you see that a lot actually in real life with actors who maybe they were a child actor, maybe they had an early on role on like a television show, and then it never really. Freddie Prinze Jr.'s popping into my head, even though he was a little more successful, but now he's like,
and he was Star Wars.
He's a very well known writer. He's done a ton in the industry, but not necessarily being the big like leading man like like when he was like a teenager, like people were pushing for him. It does happen all the time.
But he is a Star Wars.
He is a Star Wars. It's true. Did you know he used to write for the WWE?
I did.
That's pretty cool.
I know. And then he was a Star Wars.
He was a Star Wars.
He was one of the best Star Wars.
Well.
Oh, Kanan is such a good character.
Oh.
His character is probably one of the best Star Wars characters.
I'm sorry. Did he voice Babu Freak?
Babu.
Then he's not the best Star Wars.
Or Ben Quadraneros.
Yeah, okay, don't bring up Ben. Don't get me started on Ben. Anyway, let's get out of the Star Wars mess. We cut to Stephanie and Diane with their meetup at the restaurant, and this is Bojack's restaurant. And I don't know if you noticed this, Sean, but the staff of the restaurant is still the same people from the disaster 2 episodes ago.
Oh, that's funny.
It's the donkey woman.
Yeah.
She's their waitress.
And I see the kid is walks past the table.
The kid walks past their table, and then behind the bar is the corgi that was fetching. He was the valet, and he is failing terribly behind the bar. And even the guy who's not a good chef delivers food to a table, and it's on fire. So I thought that was a really funny. No one references it, right? It's just like an animation choice that they made, and I think it's really funny.
It's really good.
But Stephanie is a pretty insufferable character. She says a lot of things that I hate, and it's tough because she says on fleek.
She goes, right? It wasn't on fleek. Fleek was on it. And
I don't remember now at this point if 2016, if that was a played out term at that point.
I want to say I don't think it was. I think, maybe it was. It might have been a couple years old at that point.
I think it was. I'm trying
to remember like what grade-ish I was in when people started like using it a lot.
Yeah. But the important part of this conversation is that she says like, hey, I loved your work with what you did on Hank Hippopoulos last year.
Yes.
But would you be willing to, write a piece about your husband?
Yeah, this is gonna go fucking terribly.
She kind of describes the relationship between Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane, where she says, and you knew that as much as you loved him and as much as he loves you, he's never gonna get it. And meanwhile, you also knew that all your readers looked up to you and wanted to read your opinion. Would you write about it then? And it just cuts to Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter, and he's like, you got the job? And she's like, I got the job. So there's a little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yeah.
And he goes, it's so crazy that in a week I sold the company for millions of dollars. You got a job writing a blog.
Yeah.
And like, when it rains, it pours, huh? And it's like, he doesn't realize how insulting that is.
Yeah.
He's like actually genuinely happy for her,
Yeah.
But it's just so funny. So yeah, I think I think you're right about that possibly going pretty poorly, but we'll see. Todd is meeting with the new buyer of Cabracadabra and his lawyer, and Todd's like explaining to him how the office works, and they're like, dude, we are just here to give you money. You don't get to tell us how we can like run this. Like, It's not how this works. But Todd gets a check for $8 million. He goes, you're a 1/3 owner. What did you expect? Todd is a millionaire. That will lead to some interesting stories. And as he's going to leave, why can't I think of her name? What's her name, Sean?
Emily?
Emily. Jesus, I could not think of Emily. Emily shows up to collect presumably her share because Todd let her stay as an owner of the company, even though she left.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, hi. We cut to Ethan around. They're filming, and Bojack is on the couch with a young actress who has a horse head on. And we've seen this previously when Bojack was playing Mr. Peanut Butter in the story of the DVD stole.
Yes.
And Wallace Shawn was playing Bojack.
Yes.
So are they trying to, because they show a picture in the background of Bojack and 2 horse people and then this little girl with the horse head on. Are they trying to say that she's actually a horse? Is that like...
Maybe.
In the show, she's a horse. Because I think that's what they did with Wallace Shawn earlier. I think that's what they're implying, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, isn't the whole thing that Ethan adopts a bunch of horses?
Yes.
So
it's
I guess
supposed
she
to be
would
the
be
opposite of horsing around. Yeah, but
so she would be
they
a horse.
couldn't get 3 horse child actors.
Well, no.
They could only get 2.
No, of course. And that's going to be a whole thing on Twitter.
Oh, it absolutely is. But as they're filming the scene, there's a lighting issue, and Bojack does the classic "What? I'll be in my trailer" that he used to do back in the day, and he's being like very nice to this young actress. And, "Do you got any friends in the audience?" "No, my mommy and daddy." "Well, your mommy and daddy are very proud of you." "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And she goes, "What do you mean? I want to be like you." And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "I want to be famous." And this triggers something in Bojack, a fight or flight scenario for him, and he has to leave. And Brad is like, "Is everything okay?" He goes, "I can't do this again. This isn't right." And he goes, "Where are you gonna go?" And he goes, "I don't know." And he jets. And obviously, if you put 2 and 2 together, there he is worried about creating another Sarah Lynn situation with this young girl, and like he talked about earlier in the episode, poisoning her in that same way. So he leaves, and Ethan again is left with the bag here. Or Brad. I keep calling him Ethan. That's not his fucking name. His name's Brad. Bradley Hitler Smith. Okay, that's his name. So Bojack gets in his yellow car, and there's a sad song called "Stars" playing throughout the end of the episode here. And they do this quite a bit with like songs at the end of the season. And he shows up back at his house, which is just demolished from when he drove the Tesla through the window, and garbage and pizza everywhere. And he just walks away from the house. We cut to Todd and Emily at our favorite restaurant, and they both have big giant banana splits, and they're talking about their $8 million. What are you going to do with it? And she says she's going to get a fancy hat. And then she's going to get a t-shirt that says, "Look at my hat." And he says, "I've always wanted to go to a nice restaurant where I order everything on the menu." And she's like, "Yeah, that's first day millionaire stuff." And he's like, "Hey, we should go together sometime." And this causes her to go, "Hey, what's your deal? Like, you act like you like me. But then you don't act like you like me. Are you gay?" And he's like, "Why would you even?" She's like, "It's okay if you're gay. This isn't the 1600s. Or some places in the present." And he's like, "I'm not gay, but I don't think I'm straight either. I don't know what I am. I think I might be nothing." And she's like, "Well, that's okay."
Do you remember this whole fucking conversation we had on one of the episodes?
Yeah, where we talked about you. Yeah. You were saying that you thought he was gay. Yeah. And I said, "Guess again." Yeah. And you were like, "Well, maybe." The only other thing I can think of is maybe he's asexual. And I said, "We'll see." Yeah. And this is the reveal that Todd is in fact ace.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And there's, that's going to be a big part of his arc going forward. Yeah. It's funny, they kind of pulled the wool over your eyes a little bit with this $8 million thing, right? Where they're this is what's going to change Todd's life, and then he accidentally tips $8 million. Yeah. But really it's this reveal that of his sexuality and how, that's going to be part of his story moving forward.
And it's interesting because I feel like he's also, I'm sure it'll go wrong, but I feel like he's in a better place at the end of this episode than if he'd had the money.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he would have fucked up terribly if he had the money, but in this position, him and Emily are friends again. She's a good influence on him. Until Bojack comes back and ruins everything, it kind of feels like this could be a good moment for him.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. We cut to Bojack speeding, leaving California, America's Sideburn. Well, it cuts to a second, and then it cuts back to Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter. And he has a doorbell, and he goes to get it, and they're like, "Is it pizza?" And it's Katrina Peanut Butter. His first wife. Yeah. And he goes, "You're not pizza." And she's like, "This argument again." But she's here with a pretty interesting opportunity he says, is it being married to you again? Because I'd rather get euthanized. Spoiler alert for Marley and Me. And she goes, that wasn't a spoiler till you said the Marley and Me thing.
Yeah.
But he says, if you got a gig for me, you can go through my new manager, which we're presuming that's Princess Carolyn. And she goes, how would you like to be the governor of California?
And
you kind of hypothesized that someone was going to run for office. And I don't remember who you said.
I said Todd.
You said Todd. And I was like, oh, intriguing, but it's actually Mr. Peanut Butter. Who's going to be running for office.
Yes. I'm very excited.
That's going to lead to some hijinks. We cut to Princess Carolyn's same office, but new office for her management firm. And Judah's there. And she goes, hey, there's someone on the line trying to get in touch with BoJack Horseman. I don't know how she got this number.
Oh, my God.
And she goes, well, I don't, work for BoJack anymore. And he goes, sorry, we can't help you. And we see a young horsewoman looking very distraught.
What the fuck, Mike?
And and she looks to be in a college dorm of some kind, or maybe just a bedroom. I'm not sure. But she she has the same white diamonds that BoJack does.
Mike.
Yes, Sean?
Does he have a fucking kid?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
It would not be surprising at all if he did.
He did make a joke at the beginning of the season about abortions, and he hopes that all the women that he paid to get abortions got them.
He did.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the thing where I said this was the biggest shock in the whole show for me that I've had so far. Was I did not fucking see this coming for a second.
Yeah.
I had even in the lead up when they're like, it's a teenage girl, I thought maybe it was Penny.
Yeah. But I think they maybe want you to think that for a second.
Yeah. So even until it cut to her, I was like, I had nothing. Yeah, I'm in. This is the plot point that I think I'm most excited. I need to know what happens next about.
Okay. You'll get a dose of it.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to BoJack, who is speeding down a desert highway, and he looks at the speedometer, eyes tired, and starts putting the pedal to the metal here. And he leans back and shuts his eyes and takes his hands off the wheel and begins to spread his arms out. And he just happens to open his eyes and look to the right, and it causes him to brake pretty violently here.
Yes.
He comes to a stop safely, and he looks, and off in the desert, there is a group of horses running.
Yeah.
Some of them shirtless, some of them clothed, running together in the desert. And this obviously has this effect on him, and that's where the episode ends. I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't read what he felt in that moment. I kind of I'm not sure how he took that. Yeah, it's a bit of I think it's supposed to be left somewhat ambiguous.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a bit of, his eyes widen a bit, like he's realizing something, but you're not sure what he could be realizing there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's how the season ends. That's how the episode ends. So yeah, like you said, a lot of things happen in that last little bit of episode, really setting up season 4 in a lot of ways. But yeah,
I can't wait.
Since it's the last episode of the season, I want to hear some predictions from you. Like, what do you think is going to happen here?
I think Diana and Mr. Peanut Butter's relationship is going to get fucking destroyed because he's about to run for office and he's a moron. And she's just been put in a position where when he does moronic shit, she's going to feel a need to write about it. Like, she's going to be his biggest critic.
I'm gonna actually bring some attention to something for you.
Okay.
That I don't think you remember, but I do because I edited the episodes recently.
Okay.
There's a part early on in the season where Mr. Peanut Butter says, "I'm like 5 big fights away from breaking up with Diane, or like having my relationship go away." And based on my count, they've had 2.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know that they actually pay that off. Full
Yeah.
disclosure. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to remind you of that because we took such a big break in between. So that's an interesting call on. I mean,
I think it's a recipe for disaster.
Running for politics is going to have a strain on your relationship regardless.
And he's a moron.
But he's a charismatic moron.
None of his policies are going to be good. Especially not from her perspective.
Are going to be his?
No, and I think that they're not going to be good regardless. Like, I think that they're going to be bad policies to begin with that he will somehow make worse. Or if they're by some miracle a good policy, he'll find a way to ruin it. Look at the Uber knockoff. Like, it's not going to end well. There's no way. I really don't know what's going to happen with Todd. I don't, like, I want him to be okay, but I think that's not going to happen. With Princess Carolyn, I think Ralph Stilton, I think he's got like a flesh suit in his basement or something. I think we're gonna like.
Oh my God!
I think he like wears, the episode of The Office with the CPR dummy.
Yeah,
and Dwight is wearing the fucking face. I think that's Ralph Stilton.
Okay.
I think he's like a fucking serial killer or something.
That would be quite a turn for the show, I feel like. But sure. Yeah.
Or he's Vincent Adult Man in a rat costume.
He's not Vincent Adult Man. I will spoil you on that right now.
He could be 3 kids in a rat suit.
Anybody could be Vincent Adult Man, I'm sure.
I choose to believe that Vincent is always with us.
He's in your heart for sure.
Yeah. I can't read what BoJack felt at the end of the season, so I really have no idea where that's going.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wait for the teenage, like his maybe daughter. Like I want to know more about that ASAP. And I feel like I'm going to wait, but
yes, you are absolutely going to wait.
But I really want to know. I like the way you just said that. I don't even know that it is a big part of this season.
So no, that's not true. But I will tell you, I just clicked forward to the next episode because I like to end our episodes by talking about the next episode.
Yeah.
I don't think BoJack is even in the next episode.
Very interesting. Okay.
Which is a very common thing.
Yeah.
In these shows where they're like leave you off on a cliffhanger and then the next episode has nothing to do with it, right?
Yeah.
I will tell you that the first episode of season 4, we haven't done the categories yet and we'll get back to it.
Yeah.
The first episode of season 4 introduces the character that Mr. Peanut Butter is running against.
Okay.
And he's voiced by Andre Brager, the
rest in peace. Love him. Yeah.
And his name is Woodchuck Kudchuck Berkowitz.
That's really good.
He's one of my favorite characters on the show.
I'm very excited.
Andre also was Captain Holt on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which I've been watching a lot of recently.
Oh God, he's
unfortunately passed recently, but
he's so good on that show.
A very iconic voice on him, and very, very.
I am delighted.
Yeah. He's obviously not Captain Holt in this, but his voice is just so iconic, and he's so good in it. And he's like a really good foil for Mr. Peanut Butter. So
I've never felt so sad in my life. He's so good. Yeah.
But anyway, let's finish up this before we start talking more about season 4. What was your favorite animal-based joke?
That's actually difficult. It might. I'm trying to think about like I feel like there wasn't a big focus on like animal based.
Yeah. I have one if you want me to go.
I like the idea of the citizens of Pacific Ocean City getting cooked.
Yeah.
I think that's funny.
I think Tom Grumbo Jumbo calls it delicious at one point. A delicious tragedy.
Yeah.
It's like a fucking seafood bake or whatever.
Yeah.
Bake. Mine is they're like doing this. It's really at the beginning of the episode, and Margot Martindale's like, flying in the Escape to LA, and they cut across the ocean to the other boat, and they like do this shot. It's like very like epic, and they do a shot where there's a seagull and he dives into the water. And when he comes out, he has a fucking like soda pop holder around his neck. And he's like that. And I thought that was really funny upon a rewatch. What's your favorite bit overall? And I think you said this already, right? It was the spaghetti coming down on the city.
Yeah. And it's the same shot every time.
I'm gonna actually. I like this bit because it's poor Brad. But the idea that he will just run to whatever BoJack wants him to do and then get let down again and like sell his hardware store multiple times. Just a sad sack, a poor guy, and that's probably my favorite reoccurring bit. And what's your favorite quote?
I'm not gonna go for the sad one this time.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with, you know damn well when we took to the sky, we made a solemn oath never to meddle in the affairs of land nor sea. We are sworn but to observe. This is the Blimper's promise.
I love it.
What's yours?
Mine, I'm going to go with the poison speech from BoJack.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's really good.
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, but I read it earlier.
Yeah.
All right. So that is season 3, Sean. Very exciting stuff. Season 4 starts off with the episode titled "See Mr. Peanut Butter Run." And Mr. Peanut Butter starts his campaign for governor of California by challenging the current governor to a ski race, while BoJack is nowhere to be found. And this one has a 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb.
Wow.
So a bit of a dip in quality according to the viewers on IMDb.
Interesting.
I don't know that I agree with that. It is I will tell you. I'll say the reason I think that it's rated so low is because of the way this episode ends. People wanted some catharsis on like the threads it sets up, and it's a bit more of a goofy episode. And like I said, BoJack doesn't show up at all.
Yeah.
So I think that rating is more about the disappointment of that storyline not continuing yet than the actual quality of the episode.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But
yeah, no, that makes sense.
Because I really like this episode.
I'm really excited to watch it.
Yes. So we're going to, just so we kind of lay out a plan and then not do it like we typically do. Our plan, this is, we're in September right now recording this episode. Our plan is to continue to record twice a week, season 4. Yeah. But you guys probably won't see it until the new year.
Yes.
Just
for
because
a very specific reason.
For a very specific reason, because the new season of Squid Game, season 2 of the show Squid Game, comes out in December. And so by the time by the time you're listening to this, it's probably right before that comes out. And that's a show that's coming out right now, and so we want to be current with it, and we don't want to run BoJack at the same time we run Squid Game.
No.
So you'll probably finish this. Squid Game will start coming out, and then once Squid Game's done, you'll start hearing BoJack season 4, and then we'll keep going from there. So
yes.
That's kind of the plan. We appreciate you guys listening. I know we're hopefully not going to have as big of a gap in between these seasons as we have done.
I don't see that happening.
No, I don't either. Especially because I think, the show's been very good the whole time, but
yeah,
I really think we're getting in some really good stuff that you're really going to
I think
want to continue to watch. Not that anytime we stopped, it was because Sean was like, well, I don't want to watch anymore. No. It's just, life got in the way and shit.
Yeah, I mean, it helps when, you're really motivated.
Yeah.
by the show.
I'm scrolling through some of these episodes, and there are some funny fucking episodes in this season.
I think. Did you say this was your favorite?
I think so.
Season 4.
Yeah. I don't know that every fan of BoJack Horseman would agree with that.
Okay.
But I think the emotionally poignant episodes are very good, and I think the funny episodes are very good.
Okay.
I'm looking at some of the I'm looking at some of the scores, and there's a lot of 7s in this season. So again, I think I might be in the minority.
Okay.
But the ones that are really good are rated really high.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's what I think. I really like this episode, or this season.
Yeah.
It does a lot of really cool stuff, and I'm excited to watch it and talk about it with you.
I can't wait.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for season 3. Thank you for sticking with us. And we will see you guys soon for season 4.
Suck a dick, dumb shits.
I feel like I should say that went well at the end of it now.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, I'll start doing that if I
Okay,
remember.
cool.
Cool. No doubt. Cool.